Hello and welcome to the Athletic NBA Show. I'm Dave DeFore and it's Friday. That means it's Nerder. She wrote, joining me as they do each and every week. And I should note, in playoff form, Mo DeKeel and Seth Partnow. What's up, guys? How are the streams going?
The playback streams are awesome. Come check out. Seth and I were watching basketball games together, playoff games, playback.tv. We're the Nerder stream. So go ahead and find us there. Those are awesome. And please have fun and enjoy as we both ramble about basketball while we watch basketball. But more importantly, Dave, Eid Mubarak to my Muslim brothers and sisters out there.
There you go. I'm glad everybody can eat right now while they're listening to this. Mo running back this morning and trying to just wolf down some food was pretty hilarious for us. Guys, we've got a little bit of breaking news this morning, and we're recording this on Friday morning. Nick Nurse has been fired by the Toronto Raptors. Masai Ujiri had a press conference today, and he talked about it a little bit. Apparently on his way out the door, Nick Nurse said, good luck with those guys. Seems like, I don't know, that's not great. Not a gracious exit. Guys, we talked about this a couple weeks ago with Katie Heindel. We felt like it was a weird situation anyway. Obviously, this team has underperformed, since that title run, and for various reasons, not just coaching. But the stories that have come out so far this morning, they cite basically lack of organization, lack of a plan internally and for the coaching staff with the players, and the development has certainly dropped off. And we all noted that, some of these guys have stagnated. Scotty Barnes took a demonstrable step back to start the year, although I do think he finished the season pretty strongly. It's not great. But we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The guy kind of started this in the media himself, and now he's out.
We talk about teams quitting on coaches. There's teams like that may or may not have happened here, but it may or may not have also been precipitated by it. I mean, is it too harsh to say the coach quitting on the team?
I don't think so. I mean, if a coach sits down and starts speculating on his own future in a press conference, and then again, Messiah, I mean, not a guy who really tells you a whole lot, but when he tells you that on his way out the door, Mo, he says, good luck with those guys. Doesn't seem like he's saying good luck with my guys.
Yeah, that's an awful way to leave there. I'm sure Nick Nurse isn't happy that Messiah shared that one detail, but ultimately, look, you know it, Dave, more than anybody. I am not a Nick Nurse fan. I think he's overrated as a coach. I think we give him a lot of credit. I think he's very good on the defensive end as a coach. I think he's done absolutely nothing with this team on offense. And everybody always says, well, look at the team he has. He has no creators and whatnot. That's when you need the coach the most, to put the team in a system. Lack of organization, lack of development, a lot of problems across the board there from what Nick Nurse has done. We give him a ton of credit for winning a championship and throwing out a box and one on Steph Curry. And everybody goes completely nuts about how great he is. He's a top 5 coach and all of this stuff. He hasn't done jack shit since. And I'm sorry. Ty Lue coaches his ass off. Eric Spoelstra coaches his ass off. And I'm critical of those guys. I've been all over Ty this year. And I know coaches can have bad years and things like that. Nick Nurse has not lived up to the hype. And sure as hell not lived up to the hype to have your own merchandise. I think there's a lot of things there where I'm not surprised. And this has been one of the worst kept secrets. We kind of all felt like he was gone since March. And it's not good that he was already connected to the Houston job. One, when Steven Silas was still the coach, and two, he still had a job. Like there's not, it's quite interesting to have that stuff kind of go on behind the scenes. And I think that's sort of the situation there. But that's a rough way to leave. But we'll see how good he is.
3, you've got a job with a decent roster for a very good organization, and that's the job you're sort of openly pining for. There's a little bit of what are you about? We question when players make those kind of decisions. I think that we should. Again, I feel a little uncomfortable, not because we don't know, we only suspect, but at the same time, we would ask about a player, so I'm going to ask about the coach.
Look, don't we all think it's weird that James Harden is being linked to going back to Houston at this point? We think that's weird, right? A player of his stature and status and this stage of his career.
I don't think it's weird just because I don't think James Harden's about that life, but that's a whole different.
Okay, that's fair. But this is my thing, though. If you're not
the
about
same
that
argument
life,
we're
seems
making
like
here.
Houston's the right place to go, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I think also Nick Nurse is trying to go to Houston and it's part of a power play. And he's trying to get the more control over the team itself and things like that, which, hey, good luck.
Because
I don't trust him as the coach. Yeah, well, I've seen it in many places and it never works except
I should
one
not
place. Right. And I think the more interesting scenario is I'm tired of coaches being one-sided coaches.
Yes.
I kill players that are one-sided players. I yell at people when they say that's a two-way player. I say, no, that's a fucking basketball player. As a basketball coach, you can't just be good on one side of the court. You need to be good at both ends of the court. You need to have stuff. And I didn't like D'Antoni because he was so offensive based and didn't have a defensive structure. I'm all over Tibbs for being unbelievable defensively and not having an offensive structure. It's the same thing with Nick Nurse, and we're tough on players for that. We need to be tougher on coaches in that respect too. This whole idea of offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator is bullshit. This isn't the NFL. The way you play defense affects how you play offense. The way you play offense affects how you defend. And I think it's important for the coach to be able to handle both sides.
But the point about coordinators is the point. If you should recognize as a coach, I am more interested. I am more innovative. I am more competent at concepting and teaching these things. I need to not be threatened by having someone else who's also excellent, but their excellence complements rather than overlaps with mine, so that we can get the best of everything. And I will empower that person, but it's still coming from me. But coach is going to take you through it, and it's going to be good.
I had this conversation, it's funny enough, yesterday with a guy who was an NBA scout and coached in college about what makes a good coach, and how it's really hard to teach, because you're part salesman, and being a tactician is maybe fifth on the list of things that you need to be good at. But recognizing your own weaknesses and trying to, support those with NBA staffs are huge now. There's just no reason to not have, good people around you. And that says a lot to me, because if you want all the attention and all the credit, well, you're going to get the blame too. And for me, I'd rather spread the blame and the credit around, but, I'm built a little different.
I think if you want the credit and have your own merchandise, you better be better at that.
Well,
stuff.
that's a whole.
Dave, why don't you have merch though? Let's be honest.
I'm fine with Dave having merch. I do
have merch. Thank you very much. There's a little bit of merch right there.
Well, okay. Why don't I have your merch then?
Well, you can go to tpublic.com. It's out there.
I don't have anybody's merch, let alone the places I work and podcast at. The whole other side.
No, yeah. I owe you some merch.
One thing that you said that was really important, Dave, and I think you guys, even you and your friend in the conversation, undersold it. It's not part salesman. It's all salesman.
Right.
You are selling your product every day, and your product is the shit you bring on the court. It's about getting buy-in every day. And I think that's where Nick Nurse lost it. He stopped selling it, and the player stopped buying it. Somewhere in that scenario, that's where things went wrong. And I think that's where a lot of times a lot of coaches end up failing with that stuff. And I think that's the key word and the key phrase you said in there that's really important to hit on. But again, I just think, hey man, good luck with Nick Nurse.
Yeah, that sort of ego doesn't fly, I don't think, in the NBA, right? Like the stars are the basketball players in the NBA. If you want to have that sort of ego about yourself, have your own logo as a coach, seems like college would be a good place for that, where it is a little bit more cult of personality and being famous, and having a good Nike deal and, being able to recruit is important. But in the NBA, good coaches recruit by being great coaches. That's how you recruit. You get people who want to go play for you, which is still pretty rare. But on the occasion that you do, you got to be one of the best.
Who are the star coaches in the end? Like the coaches right now who are stars? I think there's one. And I think that if we're talking about an ego, that's Steve Kerr. Like wherever we think that he is in the firmament of coaching ability,
Right.
he is the coach who is especially now that Pop has kind of aged out and the Spurs haven't been relevant.
How dare you?
I mean, come on.
Just wait.
But you're talking about, you're talking earlier about spreading credit, about, not making it about you, about, emotional intelligence. Like, what are the traits that we associate most with both Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich that allows them to be a star, but also not overshine the guys who are actually doing it on the court? And I think that's the thing that we're realizing. Like, the people we think are the best coaches, Spo, Ty Lue, they all have that. There is not a single guy who is a look at me coach that we think, and maybe that's an aesthetic judgment on our part, but I really don't think so, because I really don't think that flies, as you say, in today's day and age. And I probably hasn't flown for a long time.
Well, Phil Jackson might have been the last one, but that's a different kind of look at me. It's more of an aloof look at me. Like, he wanted to be looked at, but he didn't want you to know that he wanted to be looked at.
Well, and also, like, when he was only successful when, no matter how look at me he was, you were looking at those guys more, because it's Michael Jordan, it's Shaq, it's Kobe.
What's up, Mo?
Yeah, No, I just think part of it too is, like, Phil Jackson gets to have that ego. Greg Popovich gets to have that ego. Steve Kerr gets to have that ego now if he wants. Shit, Eric Spoelstra to me gets to have that ego. I mean, to a degree, Ty Lue, but that's about it.
Yeah.
None of these guys have done enough to be able to have that.
Yeah.
Today's show is brought to you by Indeed. Visit Indeed.com/NBA Show 22 to start hiring now. When you're drafting your fantasy team, you ever wish you could handpick the best stars for your business team? If you're building your talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills. We can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. If you hate waiting, Indeed just makes hiring easy. You can do it all in one place. With Indeed, matching as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Boom! Hiring at warp speed. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/NBA Show 22 to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/NBA Show 22. Indeed.com/NBA Show 22. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
All right, we're getting in the weeds a little bit, but that literally just happened. So we this is kind of the show that talks about coaches, so we had to hit on that. So let's go now to your favorite things, guys. Seth, what's your favorite thing this week? I know the playoffs have been a lot of fun, so I'm hoping it's something fun.
So right before the playoffs started, I dropped kind of my end of season, like, interim player tiers. And the way I've done the tiers, it's always been very kind of win a championship focused. And that means how you perform in the playoffs. So that means I'm always on the lookout for who is stepping up, who's emerging, who's proving things. And there's three guys who, we're just barely into the playoffs. So I don't want to make grand pronouncements, but I see what you're doing. I just wanted to highlight three guys, and that's Tyrese Maxey, it's Michael Porter Jr., and that's, I think, if we're talking at the top end of players, it's Devin Booker. And I'm really enjoying, and in Devin Booker's case, we've known he's been great offensively. He has been awesome defensively in the playoffs so far. And for a guy who's playing 45 minutes a game, has the ball in his hands all the time, has to create every shot for himself, to be able to do that, I am just very impressed and excited, and I want to see more.
I'm mad at you because that was going to be that's my one more thing I'm working on right now. That's probably going to come out hopefully later today. But the Devin Booker defense has been absolutely absurd with what he's done across 3 games. We talked about it on the Daily Ding. I was talking with you about Michael Porter Jr. the other night, Seth, and I mean, I'm impressed with his defense as well. His effort level and awareness and doing a good job, like taking pride in it. And that's such an important aspect of it on the defensive end. doing the small things that nobody's going to congratulate you on except your coach's staff, which like the one assistant who watches film with you in pregame, who's like, that's what you need to keep doing. That's important. And I think watching that for MPJ has been huge. And it's huge for the Nuggets championship hopes, and I think that matters a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this about MPJ. I never felt like his defensive shortcomings were an effort issue. It was an awareness thing. And it was, maybe even like you could argue body control to a certain degree, even though he's a great athlete. I think dealing with the back stuff that he's dealt with his whole career, he had to find a way to defend with his brain first. And I think he's doing a much better job of that. So, like, to your point, Seth, like him being able to defend in the playoffs is the difference between the Nuggets being serious, like they could win the finals, and whether or not they make the conference finals or not. Like he was a guy who was going to get attacked, and now you just can't do that directly.
I also think, I mean, we it's good that we're focusing on his defense, but also there's some offensive improvements. When the Nuggets were at their peak, kind of before the Murray injury, he was basically a baseline player. He did his things. He played in the corners. He cut along the baseline. He offensive rebounded. When Murray got hurt and he had to kind of move to the top and middle of the floor, he struggled. He struggled with that. And I think he's really improved as a decision maker and an operator in that middle third of the floor, at the top of the floor. And I think that also adds another little bit of versatility and difficulty to defending the Nuggets. When you don't just have to worry about like Jokic making plays and Murray making plays. There's another guy with there on the bench or foul trouble or whatever who can have the ball and make plays at the top of the floor, and that in turn opens the game up for Aaron Gordon, for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, for Bruce Brown, whoever else is on the floor.
I'm glad you mentioned Maxey too, because between his speed and his range, this guy is incredibly dangerous as an offensive player. He is spacing the floor out. I mean, I'm not sure how I feel about the Sixers through, the first 3 games of that series. I don't think they've played really up to the standard that I expected from them. But Maxey has. That guy he's been nuts. Mo, what's your favorite?
You really want to use nuts in respect to the
that's a good, that's a fair point. A little bit too
on the
many
nose,
of those.
little on the button.
Yeah. Mo, what's your favorite thing that's not suspensions or groin shots?
Yeah. Or referees not kicking guys out of games when they should. My favorite thing is offensive rebounds. I think we've seen a massive importance this playoffs. We've seen it a little bit trickle over the years, but we've seen a bunch of teams focus on we're crashing the glass a whole ton in this series. I mean, Atlanta beat Miami and got into the playoffs by absolutely dominating the offensive glass. I think we're seeing it in every series. The offensive glass is being absolutely pivotal. And in terms of just getting an extra possession, the effort. I mean, Russell Westbrook, partly put the Clippers in a position to win game 1 because of his offensive rebounds in that last minute where that possession lasted 35 seconds or something like that. I think there's a lot of stuff you're watching with it, and I think it's a phenomenal thing. And it also goes to probably my least favorite thing. Has everybody forgotten how to close out? Or, excuse me, box out.
Box out.
Let me do that again, Dave. Let me do that again. That goes to like my least favorite thing, Dave. Has everybody forgotten how to box out? I've seen maybe 3 good box outs in I don't know how many playoff games right now. Like, it is frustrating. And we need to get back to boxing out. Maybe Nick Nurse can work on that in Houston.
I mean, if not boxing out, I do think rebounding is a skill, right? And there's an art to it, whether you're boxing out or not. There's plenty of guys who have been great rebounders without being great at boxing out. Now, boxing out, Brook Lopez famously, like 7 rebounds a game, but his team gets, huge amount of rebounds because he's so adept at boxing out. I mean, the guy is huge. You don't have to box out though, but the way you crash the glass matters. You need to have a little bit of finesse to it. Like Nick Claxton, surprisingly, for a small guy, he's so good at getting underneath bigger guys. I mean, I think that's one of the benefits to having that sort of body. But offensive rebounding, Anthony Slater wrote about Kevon Looney over at The Athletic, and he mentions in there that when he got to Golden State, they had to remind him, hey, don't go back up with it. You have Steph Curry and you have Klay Thompson out there. And Seth, offensive rebounds, they lead to open kick out threes. So it's to me, this was the missing ingredient to what we've seen with the offensive explosion in the last, decade. That part of the game had just disappeared for a while. And so for a guy who aesthetically likes some difference, I think it's nice to have offensive rebounding playing a key role in these games. I mean, the Grizzlies are struggling against the Lakers somewhat because they focus so heavily on offensive rebounds, and now they don't have their guys to get those rebounds. So, they have to restructure their entire offense.
This is low key. This is actually an area where I think that the detailed study of like tracking data and analytics can really help teams because the math on crashing the boards more is pretty clear. In that I've played around a number of different ways. Basically, you could afford to give up about 3 or 4 extra fast breaks for every offensive rebound you get for it to still be profitable. However, figuring out where you can, when you can crash and actually have that trade-off work in your favor is a little bit involved in terms of where you're coming from, where the shot's coming from, and then distilling that then down into rules that your players can actually execute on. I think that's an area where really some detailed study of how these things work probably gives some teams advantages. And then on the other hand, the teams that get advantages are the teams that have Kevon Looney, and you can have 4 guys get back, and he can shove 3 guys under the basket, including one of the stronger players in the league, in Domantas Sabonis, and just get rebounds all by himself. Also, that's also helpful.
Yeah, Kevon Looney that guy's amazing. He had an amazing game last night. Do you guys want to talk playoffs? I think now's a good time.
Yeah, we're done. We're good.
Well, so we were thinking, we've got about 3 games for most of the Western Conference Series. Let's talk about key adjustments after game 3, and let's jump right into the Warriors-Kings. Kings lead that series 2-1 as we record. Warriors came back at home. They're a better home team than a road team all season long. They didn't have Draymond Green, but Mo, they changed the way that they were defending in game 3. I thought they did a much better job. And then Seth, they also had a little bit of that, please just miss every shot.
Yeah, so far this series, the Kings are 19 of 72 on uncontested threes, which is bad. They were actually worse in game 2 than they were in game 3, funnily enough. But I think that the Kings, I don't want to say they didn't approach the game right, but I think there was a little bit of squeezing too tight on their end. Yes, the Warriors definitely deserve a lot of credit for inducing more pressure, for not letting Sabonis get into that DHO game is easy enough. But the Kings like to play fast. First 2 games, they were playing fast effectively. In game 3, they were in a hurry. And I think that really led to a lot of the turnovers, led to a lot of the poor shots, and let the Warriors get going on some fast breaks by those bad offensive possessions. And this is going to be galaxy brain and counterintuitive, but the Draymond suspension maybe even hurt them that way. They go into that game playing against the full string Warriors. We're up 2-0. This is a free roll. We get this one. It's great. We don't. No big thing. With the suspension, shit, we got to get this game.
Gotta win.
It's 2-1. Then Draymond comes back and it's 2-2. And now we're back on our home floor and we got to win that game. If we lose that game, we're losing in 6.
Yeah, I agree with you, Seth, and that whole point you said about just they played hurried and not fast. Like you could sense that. And I think part of it is, and I rarely kind of think this matters that often, I think that home crowd was a big part in that first 5-6 minutes of that game. May not have played a role the rest of the way, but that first 5 minutes, 6 games, that frenetic energy, you could feel it from them. I was almost like, yeah, the Kings need to play fast, but they also need to slow down right now. And I think that's a massive point. And I think you got to give credit to the fans at Chase Center for going completely ballistic and doing everything, booing when Sabonis gets the ball, all this stuff. I mean, there were times where it looked like, hey, for the Sacramento Kings, welcome to playoff basketball. That's playoff basketball. That was that moment for them there. And fair, like I felt like they didn't rise to the moment. And I don't know if a lot of teams would have. Younger teams in particular with this little experience. Like that was one of those things I think that needed to be calculated going into the game 3 for the Kings. I thought overall the Warriors did a much better job defensively. I think maybe just playing one big allows them to chase the guards a little bit more. We should also mention, this surprised me too, no Gary Payton the second. Like, that was a late scratch there. But I thought the guards did a much better job working and trying to get over top of screens, whether it was DHO or pick and roll and whatnot. I want to see them maintain that, because that's going to be the important thing, is they've been able to just give free runs to the guards over and over again. And I think now, if this is the defense you're going to get from the backcourt, that effort, I think it's going to become a very interesting series very quickly.
Even Jordan Poole was getting around DHOs and getting around screens and disrupting handoffs and trail. I mean, I was so impressed by the defensive guard play. Steph Curry still, though, they are able to attack Steph Curry quite a bit on the other end. Well, let's talk about adjustments, because Kings just lost, obviously. They still lead 2-1. Draymond will be back in game 4. What do the Kings need to do to go up 3-1 to you guys? I mean, what do they just need to stick with their approach and make more shots, or was there something that you guys noticed that maybe they could take advantage of from game 3?
I'm going to steal. I'm stealing this point from other people. I've heard it from our friend.
Can we
Dan
credit
Purcell.
anyone? Okay,
I've heard it from our friend Dan Purcell. I think John Hollinger's made this point also. I think Keegan Murray is probably not ready for big minutes at this stage yet. I think they should probably just start Davion Mitchell. I think that putting him on Steph has gotten them good stuff, and I think they might just want to start that way.
it's the first guy I can think of that straight up can just guard Steph Curry. Like, he is making him just work, hounding him.
But the flip side of that is that it's sort of like you put an infielder at the wrong position, and somehow every ground ball seems to find them. The ball seems to find Davion Mitchell like late in shot clocks for open shots a lot, and the reason why he doesn't play more is that he is an inconsistent, shall we say, jump shooter.
Yeah, I think the real answer for the Kings and the real adjustment, and this one sucks. Make shots, for the love of God. Make some open shots, for the love of God, please.
The
gotta
play
make
better
open
adjustment.
shots.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 3 games at this point. They're shooting 27% from 3. Kevin Huerter is nowhere to be found. There's not much as a coaching staff. You kind of just going, we're getting the shots we want. Even in game 3, got the looks you wanted, just couldn't make them. And I think
6 of 27 on uncontested threes.
I mean, like, you're just looking at it going, like, as a coaching staff, I honestly, I wouldn't know what, like, massive adjustment. I like the adjustment with the starting lineup. I think I felt the Keegan Murray, this thing might be too big for him. My only pushback on it is I want him to play a little more to get more of that, get comfortable with it for future Keegan Murray. Sucks
Right.
for current Kings, but for future Keegan Murray and Kings.
I'm not saying bench him.
Right.
But
yeah.
I think if you take him out of the lineup,
Yeah.
confidence goes even. He's already low on confidence right now.
Right.
You take him out of the lineup, and even if it's like, hey, kid, you're still going to play, you have to understand just human nature of it is like, damn, I'm not playing well enough. I've lost my starting spot in our biggest moments. That might take some massaging as a coach, and that might be where some coaches can smooth stuff over. Thank God Nick Nurse isn't there. And I think that goes a long way with that stuff. And I think the that will matter in that. So I kind of be like, let's play him. We just won't play him a lot. But my adjustments are just like, fuck, make shots.
No, on that front, I mean, you said earlier about coaching being a sales job, and maybe it's as simple as, hey, we need some, like, Steph is killing us. Davion is and so we got to get him in the lineup, and you're still but we need to start this way.
Yeah.
It'd probably do it, but like Mike Brown is probably better.
I was going to say Mike Brown might be a little bit better at that than you are, Seth. Hey, buddy, listen, you're not good enough today. Sorry. Yeah. And then for the Warriors, guys, think about game 4. They're going to get Draymond back. My assumption is they'll have Gary Payton back because he was out for like an illness, non-COVID. Hopefully they'll have him back, be at full strength. If you're the Warriors, would you just start small, like Draymond? And maybe Gary Payton in the starting lineup or Dante? No.
Looney needs to be on the court. Looney needs to be on the court.
Would you bring Draymond off the bench?
No, I look, I stay with what you have. Just don't be afraid to go small quicker than you normally do.
Right.
And I think that should be the case. But Dave, you heard me all last finals screaming, Looney needs to play more. Looney needs to play more.
I got that tattooed.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's like I will lose my mind if tomorrow's starting lineup is announced and Looney isn't in it. Like, I'm just gonna go ballistic there on the Warriors at that point. Like, he showed it, his impact. He had 20 rebounds in that game. Like, and had a bunch of assists. How many assists he finished with? 9?
9.
Yeah.
9 assists. Like, that's Draymond like, to be honest with you. That line of 4 points, 20 rebounds, 9 assists, kind of Draymond-esque. So I think it would be sort of silly if they try to do it. Don't go overboard. Don't overthink this right now if you're the Warriors. And I think just you won the game. Get rolling here. Keep the defensive intensity of going over screens and fighting through that stuff. For the Warriors, I wouldn't try to tweak too much and go nuts there.
I've got sort of an unsung player for both teams that I've kind of liked what they've given so far, and think both teams could probably get more out of. For the Golden State, I really like what Moses Moody gave them in Game 2, and we've talked several times over the season about how kind of frustrated we were about Kerr not sort of going to Ty Jerome and Anthony Lamb and not letting Moody kind of play through some mistakes. He was very solid. Obviously made some shots, but also, with his size and athleticism, able to operate in a playoff environment. On the Kings side, I've liked what Alex Len has given them so far this series. And certainly just that bulk against Looney. Now, you certainly against like lineups with Draymond and Steph, Len is a tough, because the defensive aspect of it is. But when you aren't facing that, I think that Len possibly gives them almost a better look against just Looney than Sabonis has so far.
I brought that up after Game 1 to Mo on the Daily Ding. I said, I think that this could be somewhat of an Alex Len series, if that exists, right? Like, this could be the one. He has such a tremendous size advantage, Mo. He can stretch the floor, but it's about the rebounds. He's bigger.
It's so fascinating. A dude that most people are like, he's still in the league, is actually a pivotal point for the Sacramento Kings. Like, this is, to be honest, as good as Sabonis has been all regular season and important he's been to the Kings, he hasn't been that great in this series. I haven't been, wow, Sabonis is phenomenal. His biggest contribution was getting his chest stomped. And I think that's along those lines. That's interesting. Where like Len has come in and had an impact and rolls hard, kind of very simple sort of thing. And I almost wonder too if some of it is when the Warriors' reaction, and speculative on my end, but like when he comes in the game, they kind of let down a little bit because he's not as skilled as Sabonis, but he's coming in immediate impact. He's got three things he needs to focus on, and that's it. And I think fairly Sabonis has like 7, and I think maybe that's harder. And I think that allows him to be more aggressive in just those 3 things he needs to focus on.
I do worry, that if you extrapolate those minutes, it's, you don't get the same bang for your buck, but you got to try stuff. So Game 4, maybe we see more Alex Len. I don't know. Clippers, Suns now lead 2-1, although Kawhi Leonard missed Game 3. Yes, sir.
I just want to jump in on this Kawhi Leonard point.
Yeah.
The Clippers have constantly hid and have done very little in sort of divulging things like that. The league needs to get on this now. Like, this is kind of ridiculous here. Like, normally we would kind of have more information besides just, oh, he has a knee sprain, and we know nothing else after that. There's nothing. And they've gone away with it for years. This is getting kind of ridiculous at this point with the league. And just so everybody understands, and people may not like the fact that the NBA and sports in general is drifting more and more towards gambling and going hand in hand. That shit's going to matter. And it's going to be real important to just drop a nuclear bomb of Kawhi's not playing 4 hours, 5 hours before tip. Like, it's interesting in my respect to that stuff. And they've gone away with it with Kawhi since they've had him. I mean, remember the whole thing when he got hurt with the Jazz? He might come back. Motherfucker tore his ACL.
But how much of this is the team, and how much of it is, Kawhi kind of says, hey, I can't go. Well, no, but if Kawhi, listen, I want to give these guys benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I think Kawhi wants to go. I think
Yeah.
the team wants him to go. My assumption is they're doing everything to try to get him ready to go. And if that means that we don't find out until 4 hours before the game, is that awful? Or do we need like the day before, hey, questionable? That's
No,
I think that's a reasonable ask from you, Mo.
No, I think while the gambling is the flashpoint for it, I think just from a fan standpoint, like this is like if you want us to care and follow and the stories of all this, like that's a big part of it. We need to know that. And if he does play and it's like, oh man, we didn't know he's gonna play. And look, he had 42 and he had 42 and 10, and we weren't sure he was gonna play. Like, why are we like leaning away from this? And you mentioned that you're not sure it's the team. You're not sure it's the player. I don't care. As Mo says, they need to be better. Fans want interest, whether it's because of the gaming or just because we're fucking interested in the games. Why are you telling us no, not that way?
But also, it's also just because with him, they've been so secretive with everything that they've done that it's actually a bad look. Remember, all last year, people were like, I don't know, man, Kawhi might be able to come back in the playoffs and like all of this stuff. It's this type of attention is not good attention for them. I don't think this is smart on their end. Come clean with it. If he's really hurt, this needs to be known for everybody. Forget gambling even. Just
yeah. But enough about Zion Williamson.
Well, here's the thing, guys. If we're going to air grievances here over the series, because I think that
I have many.
There's multiple. And let's also be fair to the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard. This series has had incredibly short turnaround times, Mo. They're going to play a Saturday afternoon game in LA, right? So the schedule, Mo, you laid it out right before the show. I mean, you're an LA guy. Lay it out.
Okay, so very simply, this is
and
one
you
of the
worked with the Clippers, so I should note you have inside information on how this stuff goes down.
This is one of the few times where it's funny. Both the Los Angeles Lakers, the LA Clippers, and the LA Kings are all in the playoffs. All three of them are the underdog in their series, so they're all playing games 3 and 4 at home. Coincidentally, that all kind of comes at the same time, and I think it's becomes challenging scheduling wise with that stuff. Staples Center does a better job than any other arena. I will fight anybody on this, flipping it from basketball court to hockey, back to basketball, or the other way around, or things like that. They flip the court faster than everybody else, to the point that, Dave, we had a game 4 against the San Antonio Spurs. We were down 0-3 in this series. This was 2011. And same situation. The Lakers were in the playoffs, the Kings were in the playoffs, and we were in the playoffs. We had a Kings game starting at 12:30. Our tip was 6:30 or 7:30 or something like that. So those who know hockey knows a hockey overtime game can last forever in the playoffs, right? It could go 4 overtimes. You can have this real crazy stuff. Of course, the first game went to overtime, I believe, in that Kings game, and it got to the point where we were so concerned that there was a possibility NBA was gonna have to actually postpone the game to the next day. But to the larger point is just there's no reason for the Clippers Suns, and this is a disadvantage for both teams, to be playing 12:30 on Saturday. The Lakers have gotten 2 days. Lakers and Grizzlies have gotten 2 days off between game 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. The Clippers and Suns have been going 1 on, 1 off each time around, and then they get the earlier time slot on Saturday. They should at the very least be Sunday. They should be on Sunday, but at the very least should be the 7:00 start on Saturday if that's the case. I honestly don't know what the league's doing in this one, and if I was both the Clippers and Suns, I'd be raising holy hell with the league of like, what the hell are we doing?
It is weird that the two teams, perhaps one of the most interesting, anticipated of the first round series, and the one where the two teams, for different reasons, the Suns because they're going to play their guys 45 minutes a night, and the Clippers because of Kawhi, basically the two teams that are most, as you say, most impacted almost by short turnaround times. That is interesting. I'm not saying there's anything behind it.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's anything nefarious. This is bad luck.
Yeah.
But also, luckily they only have a 30-minute flight. So, but all that aside, let's get to the series, because the thing is, this has been closer than I think a lot of people expected. Even the game that they played, that they lost without Kawhi Leonard, was close, and it was close late. Russell Westbrook has been surprisingly effective. And, he had a 3 of 19 game where he contributed to winning. And they did win the game. So this has been an eye-opening series so far. The depth concerns that we had about Phoenix, they're showing up. You mentioned the minutes load. I mean, Kevin Durant's playing 45 minutes a night. Devin Booker. As is Devin Booker, and Devin Booker's doing it 2 ways at 100% effort. So you guys looking ahead at game 4, we still don't know Kawhi Leonard's status as of right now. I'm assuming doubtful. How do you guys feel about it? I mean, Norm Powell I thought was excellent stepping into the starting lineup. Obviously scored 40. So is that something that they can steal one without Kawhi?
Stealing one at home's funny.
I know.
But that's the situation.
Such a talent disadvantage. And it stinks because I actually, man, this Clippers team is these 3 games have been pretty interesting. Like they have not backed down at all, and they have every reason to.
I mean, the 2 games that he played, Kawhi was great.
Yes,
like if he came back in the series, they won the series, and you got back to me in like early June, and it's like, hey, the Clippers and Bucks in the NBA Finals, I would be surprised, but I would not be shocked.
No, I mean, it's really interesting. Like, this is a tough team. This Clipper team does have a lot of fight. And to be honest, they're kind of at their best when they're down guys. Like, this has kind of been their MO over the last few years in their instance. I mean, just think about it this way. They lost Kawhi in that Jazz series, and they still pulled it off and got to the first conference finals ever. I think there's a lot of that stuff. First off, there's a lot of people going and apologizing to Russ and everything. And I was the first one to go completely nuts even before I even said, if you even think about it, you guys are crazy. I still stand by that point. It just, we didn't know at that time they were going to be down PG and coincidentally Kawhi. Then you need Russ, and Russ has been phenomenal. But where Russ has been most interesting, we probably should have mentioned him earlier in Seth's favorite thing, is the defensive end. He's trying on the defensive end in a way we haven't seen him try in like 2 or 3 years. And I think, rear view contests and blocks from behind and things like that. Like, he's really trying a lot of that stuff and putting more effort on that end, which has been interesting. Still messes up some, still misses rotations and things, but given more there. So I think that's the first starting point. For the Suns, man, Chris Paul needs to make a shot. 1 for 8 from 3.
Now, here's the one good thing, Mo, is that at least he's taking them. And that's a departure from what happened most of the season, where he just wouldn't shoot them. And I mean, he knows at this point he has to take the shots, whether he's going to make them or not, because otherwise they're done. I mean, first half of game 1, you asked me, should they bench Chris Paul? And now he had a wonderful second half, but I don't feel like he's been an effective player for them, really. Like, game 3 was awful.
I'm actually surprised they're leaving Torrey Craig so wide open and not recovering.
Not doing that to Chris Paul.
And they're doing it to Chris a little bit, but they're not like, I would just completely leave Chris and defend Torrey Craig, who's shooting the piss out of the ball. Like, it's the polar opposites of that stuff. And he made a huge 3 at the end of game 3. I think those are the things that's a small adjustment that they can make with what they're doing. I think the Clippers are just going to play small and fast and try to wear these dudes down, because Russ is the Energizer Bunny. He played 40 minutes game 3. I don't think he's tired. I'll be interested if Norman Powell can repeat this performance after playing 42 minutes in that game. I feel like Booker can. I feel like KD can. I don't know if Powell can, and that will be a big question for them.
I have a bigger alarm bell, I think, to ring than Chris Paul making shots or not. Like, that will or won't happen. Something that is maybe me a little more determinative has me very worried about the Suns in their progression. I think that maybe this is just a me thing, but I think we've all talked about, we wanted to see, and we thought they needed to go deep in the playoffs. We needed a forceful DeAndre Ayton, and we have seen none of that. He's got. I'm frankly surprised that he shot a total of 10 free throws across the first 3 games of this series. There's been
forceful. DeAndre Ayton is the real NBA unicorn because it doesn't exist.
No, but it was a huge part of why they made the finals 2 years ago.
I know.
And then he gets the ball like at the front of the rim with Nick Batum on him and tosses up a little half hook that Batum tosses out to half court. Now Nick Batum's a good defender and credit to him for making that play, but that can't happen. And that's the kind of stuff that they need more from
He
DeAndre.
fell in love with the jump hook, which is a great weapon for him. Fell in love with the jump hook, fell in love with the mid range, and now doesn't really try to get to those other spots.
I've given up. I've been on this campaign for 3 years. DeAndre Ayton's got to play with more force. Got to play with more force. Got to go up for dunking. Got to try it. There were a couple of plays last night in game 3 where there were opportunities. He did it once, and I was shocked. I was whoa! I went completely the Leonardo DiCaprio meme and started pointing at the TV, going, "See, he can do it." But did it once, and that's not enough. And I just think that's the massive problem for them. Honestly, I don't know how the playoffs are going to play out for them and things like that. But I would seriously look to try to make a move in the offseason and bring in a center that's forceful. You can kind of see the difference when Biyombo's out there, kind of similar to the Kings. Biyombo's at least playing with some sort of force.
Right.
A little bit reckless, a little bit crazy, chaotic, but there's some sort of force behind it, and he's going to try to dunk every time he gets it. It's a little bit easier for them
if he actually catches it, but that's
that's
$1 billion, a whole other issue. But
okay,
but in that sense, and I think just I've given up with it. So I know that's ring that alarm bell all you want. I just got tired. I was ringing it so much, my arm got sore. I said I'm done. I just can't do it anymore.
You guys have any adjustments? I mean, this is like a weird one because number one, have no idea on the status of Kawhi. I don't know how much the Clippers actually can change, to be honest with you. There's just not a lot you can do differently.
I think the ultimate adjustment for me would be lean in on Terrence Mann and Westbrook lineups together and let them kind of wreak havoc defensively. Just double the shit out of Booker and KD and live with everybody else.
And hope.
Like,
and hope.
I mean, like, there's not much you can. When Kawhi's healthy and Kawhi's on the court, you can at least put Kawhi on one dude. Be like, cool. Kawhi versus KD, like, yeah, we can double, but we don't have to. And then we can focus on the other guys. But now when just there is none, I think you just need to double the hell out of both of them and just see if other guys can beat you. And I honestly, I don't know if they can. Yeah. I mean, I think they'll win the series, but I still that's tough.
Yeah.
While Mo was talking, I just looked up a stat real quick, and I think this is illustrative. 2 years ago, 18% of Ayton's shot attempts in the playoffs were dunks. Last year is 10%. This year it's 3 games, so percentages are weird, but it's like he's got 2 dunks, 8.6% of his shot attempts have been dunks so far. And I think that's, you don't want to read everything into something like that, especially on a small sample size. But I think that we need that 18. We don't need that 10.
The playoffs are all small sample size.
That's true.
Like that's the one thing. So I just stats in generals, I think that's the most important thing to understand is, like, yeah, they're all small sample sizes, but it only takes 4 games to be knocked out of the playoffs. So you have to kind of just live on small sample sizes.
You got to speed up the process. Okay. And now, like, let's talk Lakers Grizzlies. Finally. I mean, no Ja Morant, no problem for the Grizzlies. Was this expected for you guys? I was worried because without the offensive rebounding presence of Steven Adams, no Brandon Clark, I was worried about their offense, especially at half court. And my thought was no Ja Morant. That means no paint touches outside of post-ups for Jaren Jackson. Like, who's going to get into the paint? But they just keep on rolling.
Like, I think the way we talk about the Kings blowing a major opportunity in game 3 without Draymond Green, I think is the veracity we're going to do with all of that really needs to be placed on the Lakers in game 2, because that was a massively blown opportunity for multiple reasons. Forget just the Ja Morant out, all that stuff. To go back home and be up 2-0 and then have 2 days rest. Because now after game 3, the rest of the series is going to be every other night. That was a huge opportunity there. And I think we've kind of said it early on. The Lakers got to be up at least 2-1 in this series because of the rest advantage that they're going to have to have a chance to win this series. And now the fact is Ja's going to be a game time decision. Who knows what happens in that sense? And maybe they can win with Ja on the court and all those things.
Go ahead.
But that's a massive blow right there. And the way they came out of that game to start the game was, we got our one. Let's just get this game
And
on the
go
road and go
home.
home.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, Mo, because I've been thinking about this a lot. I mean, Ja Morant is a terrible defender, one of the worst point of attack guys. Like you can go at him. Do you think that this is a story of Ja not being out there? Just the defense is just better, and then they created some offensive opportunities out of the better defense. They kept the Lakers off the free throw line. Anthony Davis did not have a great game. Like they really mitigated his effectiveness on offense. I thought Tillman did a great job guarding him. But how much of this is about Ja not being out there on the defense for the Grizzlies?
I don't think it's that much of it. I think it's more just Tillman went 11 to 13 from the field.
Dude,
like, come on, man. Like that's as unlikely as Rui Hachimura going 1,000% from 3 in game 1. Like that's
still the greatest 3-point shooter in NBA playoff history, I think.
At this point, and I think so I think that's kind of the oddities, the anomaly situation, and for both teams is kind of what changed those games in that instance. And I think that's the stuff. It's a good point you make about Ja's defense and being that bad and allows them to focus defensively. But I don't necessarily buy it because of what he needs to bring to them offensively. I think we always talk about how bad they are in the half court. And I think he at least generates some sort of offense. Now, with him on the court, I think with him off the court, they actually ran a little more stuff offensively, and their offense looked smoother and they got better looks. But I wouldn't want to be out without him much longer if I were them, just because I don't know how long the defensive struggles are going to really hurt you.
Yeah.
I am the subject changed a little bit. I am wary to jump on a hype train, but I did find it interesting how much better the Lakers could operate later in the game, in game 1, when the ball was in Austin Reeves' hands.
And LeBron was spacing the floor.
Yep.
Right. And I thought, listen, that's not what we're used to seeing out of LeBron, but it's the smart play for LeBron. Number one, he's a good 3-point shooter for them. Number two, as a guy catching and attacking, he's dangerous. I mean, he can kill a closeout and crash into offensive boards too. So I mean, Austin Reeves is a really good playmaker. He's a really good playmaker, and he gets to the free throw line. And that was actually a big story from game 2, was that they kept him off the line. And I actually thought the officials did a pretty good job of calling some of the more baity, looking for a shooting foul, called those on the floor for him. But he's so adept at drawing that contact that it's going to be impossible to keep him off the line like they did in game 2 the rest of the series. I think he'll adjust. But you're right. Like down the stretch, he's the guy who should have the ball in his hands. So you can't trust D'Angelo Russell, it feels like. The one issue being, Austin Reeves, not a threat to shoot off the dribble from deep. But other than that, I think that's sort of their best offense going late into the game. You feel the same way, Mo?
Yeah, I think it's to be honest, I'd like it to be ran through Anthony Davis a little bit more in that stuff and work from there. But Lakers aren't going to go far if that's it. As good as he is, that's not going to be the case. At a certain point, LeBron's got to be LeBron. And listen, Dylan Brooks can poke the bear all he wants. At a certain point, you do really piss off the bear, and it might be coming for him, And I think it's going to be those things. And I don't know if I'm not on the Lakers bandwagon. I didn't think they'd win the series. I thought they can make it close. The Ja stuff changes things. Game 3, whoever wins game 3 for me is winning this series.
It's about Anthony Davis. It's about Anthony Davis.
And he needs to come out with the fierceness. The fact we're talking about Austin Reeves being their closer should be just a signal flare in the air. And he's good, and you prefer ball handlers or whatever. It needs to be AD. And it needs to be him going at guys, drawing doubles, kicking out. And I think that needs to be the case that happens. And the Lakers need to see that the entirety of game 3. Not for the first quarter of game 3, not to the third quarter, the entirety of it.
I'd like to see him have a game with 9 assists, a loony game. Like if Anthony Davis has 9 assists, it means he probably has 5 or 6 offensive rebounds, and the Lakers are probably winning. That would be amazing.
I think I want to split the baby a little bit and say that some of my like the stuff that we've seen the Lakers try to do with AD that has not, I don't think is generally is like clear out a side, throw him the ball mid post, go to work. I generally think that that's not how he's had best success. There's been games where he's done that, but I think if they starting with a Reeves Davis pick and roll or something to get him the ball on the move, get him the ball in different spots, get him the ball so it's not just him kind of on like pushed out from the left block, turning and facing where everyone knows where he is. I think that is a way for them to get him to be in those situations that'll allow him to dominate the way that Mo wants to see.
How do you adjust if you're the Grizzlies? If you've got John Morant, do you just say, hey, please go cook?
Just massage the hell out of that hand. I think the ultimate thing is I think they need to make sure they continue to run smart, push the tempo with the Lakers. The Lakers are a good transition offense team. They're a terrible transition defense team. You can get runouts on them and makes off of them and things like that. I think they have to do a good job gang rebounding. And not even on the offensive end, just make sure the Lakers don't have a ton of offensive rebounds for them. Finish everything with a stop. And then just Dylan Brooks, stop shooting pull-ups.
Well, that's never going to happen. That's never going to happen.
He's
He's going to show up to that game. He's going to show up to the game with like a honey pot or something. I mean, he's going to have some sort of prop or an outfit for that game, and LeBron is going to crush him. That's what I'm expecting, is that, we've seen this enough. And a home LA crowd for LeBron in a playoff game, I think that we might get, I don't know. It could be crazy. I would like to have a nice LeBron playoff moment.
Substantively, I think something that I would, if Ja's available to play, I would like to see the Grizz go with the 2-point guard lineup more. I think that Tyus Jones is one of their 5 or 6 best available players right now, and just and I think they've had success playing together before, and I think that the Lakers are actually a good match because the Lakers don't have power guards. I think that's it. That you can the downsides of that are limited, and I think that in terms of controlling the ball and getting into offense more, and frankly having the ball in Dylan Brooks' hands less, I think that would be a profitable look for.
So really, you want a 3-guard lineup. You want the 2-point guards and Desmond Bane, which provides a little bit better shooting. For sure, and you can just run more stuff. I mean, Tyus Jones is a better player. I think you could make a strong argument that their best 5 available players are those 3, Brooks and JJ, and best players on the floor is not a bad place to start. It's disrespectful to Santi Aldama.
So I scrambled while you were talking. I don't know if you guys could see me clicking furiously at my computer trying to pull up a stat for once, being the non-stat guy on this group. The 2-man lineup of Jones and Morant in the regular season, what worries me is the rebounding. The Grizzlies have a 48.8 rebound percentage with him on the court, which Seth, you tell me, that good?
No.
And that's my concern. It's not about anything else. It's literally gang rebounding matters. And if they can find a way to rebound better with those 2 on the court, because I get what you're saying offensively, it's great. And I think there's a lot of stuff you can do with that offensively, but it's the rebounding that's going to be the concern, because that's a small lineup. And, I think the Lakers need to play D'Lo less. And then just have dudes like Austin Reeves crash. Yeah. If those 2 are on the floor, crash the glass. Make those guards have to actually try to box out. And I think that's a concern I would have if I was the Grizzlies with that small guard lineup.
All right. Well, guys, that's about an hour, so it feels like a good place to wrap up. For Mo DeKeel and Seth Partnow, I'm Dave DeFore, and this has been Nerder. She wrote on the Athletic NBA Show.